A huge thank you to Tokyo Treat and Sakura Co for sponsoring this video. Yo, what's up? My name's Patrouski, and I have well over 8,000 hours in Pokemon MMOs and over 7,000 hours in PokeMMO alone. It's safe to say that I really love Pokemon MMOs. It's one of my favorite games of all time, alongside my favorite genre. And there are a shocking amount of Pokemon MMOs out there, so how do you actually know which ones are worth playing or which ones are good? Today, I'm going to be giving you my top 3 Pokemon MMOs. That's right, just the top 3, because in my opinion, there's only a handful of them that are actually worth playing. Now, I'll spitball at the end all of the different Pokemon MMOs that I've played and my thoughts on them very quickly, but in general, this is mostly a top 3 list. Technically 4, since there's a really exciting up-and-coming Pokemon MMO on the way that I've been following really aggressively, but that game is not fully released yet or fully playable. Also, a quick disclaimer that this is just my opinion. Just because I have a lot of hours into Pokemon MMOs doesn't mean that I'm going to have the same taste, desires, or preferences that every player out there is going to have. This is absolutely just my opinion. And if I say something that sounds negative towards your favorite Pokemon MMO that you love very much, then screw me. Who cares? It's just one guy's opinion. I encourage you and I implore you to please enjoy the games that you love and don't let anyone get in the way of that. Without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into my list, Patrouski's list, his top best Pokemon MMOs. Now, I'm just going to start at number 1 and go down from there. It's pretty obvious. PokeMMO is easily the best Pokemon MMO in my opinion. It's also the most popular as far as we understand due to the limited data we have access to. That data mostly consisting of PokeMMO's stats on MMO Stats, which is a site that tries to cover the general population numbers, as well as just spitballing and seeing how many players actually play the game based on PvP. You can see a lot of crazy stuff based on PvP. It's towards the end of the month of this PvP season in PokeMMO, and there has been around 761,000 OU PvP games played, and that's just for the OU. We also have UU, NU, doubles, etc., and you also have to consider in, what percent of the player base even plays PvP. Now, obviously, this doesn't mean that 761,000, people are playing the game. I'm sure there's a lot of OU players that play 5 games a day, 10 games a day, maybe even upwards of 20 games a day. But I'd say the average person, it's probably like a 10 to 20% of people even play PvP in PokeMMO, and then maybe they average around 3 games or so a day. And this number, in my opinion, becomes really impressive really quickly. PokeMMO is one of the longest standing Pokemon MMOs, being released in 2012. I myself have been playing since 2013. And one of the reasons they've been able to do that is that they've overcome many hurdles themselves for the very first time. They were one of the first Pokemon MMOs to implement the ROM system, where you have to supply your own ROMs legally, and then they supply what is essentially a fancy online emulator, making them kind of impervious to some extent or safe from legal attacks from Nintendo. This style ensures that you are safe with your game's progress, and the game should never be taken down from Nintendo. Keep in mind, I'm not a lawyer, that's just our understanding. PokeMMO was also one of the first games to ever solve the huge issue of deflation of Pokemon values. One of the most important things you'll hear me talk about, and this will be a huge negative for the upcoming Pokemon MMOs, is that in a Pokemon MMO, you have to have some way to sync good IV Pokemon out of the game. Now, what does that mean? When you hear the word sync when referring to an MMO, you're usually hearing something like a gold sync, which is to reduce inflation, right? If you take Pokeyen out of the game, or gold, or whatever it may be, it keeps the value at a stagnant pace. If gold or Pokeyen were to just increasingly come into the game over a 10-20 year period, the value of gold or the value of that Pokeyen would just rapidly go down over time, and there would never be a fix for that. Every single MMO needs some sort of currency sync. The same way, specifically and difficultly, in a Pokemon MMO, you need a good Pokemon IV sync. If only good Pokemon were coming into the game with IVs over and over and over again, then the cost of Pokemon would just forever go down. If the traditional Pokemon breeding system were to be implemented in any Pokemon MMO, it's just doomed for failure. You need some way to sync out and destroy good IV Pokemon out of the game, but what is a good enough incentive to actually let players do that? And this is where the genius PokeMMO breeding system comes in. By spending some Pokeyen on some items and spending some Pokeyen on some Pokemon, you can actually put 2 Pokemon with different IVs together, consume them, and create one good Pokemon. And via this, you're always consuming at least one Pokemon out of the game, usually many, many more, when creating good, consistent PvP Pokemon. This breeding system also allows for a lot of consistency in PvP, where the same people are able to get 31 speed plus timid or whatever natures you need speed, you can consistently create good Pokemon. As opposed to Pokemon MMOs where you are required to catch all of your competitive Pokemon in the wild and you can't breed them or adjust IVs by any means. This creates some really unfortunate situations where in PvP, if you weren't lucky enough to go catch that 31 speed timid nature Starmie, you're at a huge disadvantage. So not only does this breeding system help the economy, but it also helps for competitive integrity and consistency. Now, there are some downsides. This breeding system is one of the most unintuitive to learn and really complicated for a lot of people. It's hugely off-putting to new players, myself included, when this change was made. But once you actually do learn the system, it does become shockingly easy, and you realize how genius it is and how it's required for pretty much any Pokemon MMO to sustain. Any other even mildly successful Pokemon MMO has sort of copied this strategy or taken from it. I know Temtem actually took a variation of this breeding strategy. It was rumored back in the day, there's no confirmation on this, but it was actually rumored back in the day that PokeMMO hired economists to come in and help them come up with this solution. This was truly a bridge that PokeMMO had to cross that no one else had crossed before. And it's one of the big reasons why PokeMMO has continued to go on as opposed to so many other Pokemon MMOs have died. When an economy dies in an MMO, the game itself also dies with it. Another quick point alongside this system, and this is just one aspect of PokeMMO, but this whole breeding system also makes it so that the main gameplay loop of PokeMMO continues to be catching Pokemon. Catching Pokemon for profit is a huge staple and really good in PokeMMO for a large variety of players. And you can get a 1x31 IV, 1 out of every 5 or 6 catches on average. And due to this breeding system, any Pokemon with a 1x31 IV usually ends up with some sort of value, depending on the egg group and such like that as well. They'll always have something worthwhile, and you can usually make some solid Pokeyen depending on the current market. But enough of this cringe, fancy, advanced mumbo-jumbo. What else makes PokeMMO good? Really just the simple fact that you can casually play through the storyline together with friends. It is truly... PokeMMO is the best way to experience generations 1 through 5 of Pokemon with friends. It's what Pokemon always wanted to be back then, but without having to use all the dumb link cables and such. You can just right-click someone's name, trade them. You can right-click your friend's name, challenge them, add them to your friends list. It's just so smooth. One of my favorite things to recommend to new players is just getting a group of friends, whether it's 2 to 4 people, and just going through the storylines together and battling each other after each gym. So what this allows is different strategies, and maybe you'll build your team in different ways that you would normally do when playing the storyline. But I think that's enough about gushing over PokeMMO for now. I'm going to have much less to say about the other games since I've obviously put way more time into PokeMMO. But I can't recommend it enough. I really do feel like this game is on top of the Eiffel Tower, and pretty much any other games on this list are going to be well deep into the ground. But I do think that the other Pokemon MMOs on this list are at least worth checking out or trying to see if they're for you. One last note that PokeMMO is available on PC, Mac, Linux, and Android phones and iOS. Really anything. I've seen people even play it on Steam Deck. PokeOne is, in my opinion, the second best Pokemon MMO out there right now. It has a really cool vibe and aesthetic, but however, this game might get overtaken by another game that we'll cover in our honorable mentions. Now, PokeOne is a really cool way to have a refreshing new Pokemon experience in an MMO format, alongside trade chats and general community stuff, alongside a ton of other pop-ups and daily logins and general MMO stuff. The shiny rate in PokeOne follows the traditional Pokemon format of 1 out of 8,192. You can access things like mounts in this game pretty early on, as you can see myself riding a Ninetales currently. There is a real-world currency shop, but you can actually earn that currency just by playing the game for free over a period of time, and it seems to be decently generous with it. You have things like main quest, daily quest, bounty quests, and side quests to keep you entertained. Something I constantly hear praised about with PokeOne is the amount of endgame content and the amount of direct things to go do within the game itself, like big world bosses and such to congregate to. Now, I myself may not have that many hours within PokeOne, but I did actually play it on release. And I do think one of the biggest games that unfortunately ended up holding this game back was that on release, this game suffered some nasty DDoS issues. There was some group or some community that really was out to get PokeOne and was constantly DDoSing servers online. So if you played this game on release, you were one of the lucky ones that was actually able to log in. And I was able to log in a fair amount, or a little bit at least, on release, which I was happy about. And this game was really exciting upon release, and I think still is really exciting and still solid to this day. Now, it obviously doesn't really feature the traditional elements of Pokemon to some extent, or at least the traditional map and graphics. If you're looking for that replayability or that nostalgia aspect, you're not really going to get it here. This is more so nostalgia plus, or getting a fresh new experience. It's also important to note that this game does not go through the ROM strategy that PokeMMO does, so I don't feel comfortable saying that this game will be around forever or is super protected legally, but once again, I'm not a lawyer. This game does feature the updated 3D sprites that PokeMMO does not, so if you prefer that, you can go ahead and do that. And you also earn little boxes for just logging in and playing the game. Like I was actually just rewarded a small box for playing. So there is a huge loot crate slash type like box system, but honestly, I think it's mostly just fun and not too malicious. Overall, I'd say it's a solid, once again for the third time, refreshing Pokemon experience. If you're looking for something new to play with some friends, is it something that a lot of people play for thousands of hours? In my opinion, not really, but there are many that do so, and I recommend checking out their content on YouTube. The breeding system in this game is non-existent from my understanding. You cannot breed, so it comes down to that wild catch Pokemon for PvP, etc. kind of mentality. There's also a full-on achievement list system, which is awesome for once again guiding the player and giving goals. There's also no auction house or grand exchange or any sort of way to sell Pokemon in a logged system, and from what I understand and from what I've seen on Google. So the only way is to use trade chat, and with how quiet the game seems to be overall, it doesn't seem like that would be a super quick process. I have a lot of doubts for PokeOne, and I don't really play it personally since I feel like you can only really fit one Pokemon MMO into your schedule, but I think it's at least worth checking out to see if it's right for you. Sorry to interrupt your video, but we have something important to talk about today. And by something important, I'm of course talking about Japanese snacks. I've been working with Tokyo Treat and Sakura Co. for many months now, and I'm a huge fan. They send you snacks straight from Japan, straight to your room. They're a great way to try creative, interesting snacks that you literally can't get here in the US. What do you say we bust open this box and see what there is this month? They always stuff these things to the absolute brim. They are not afraid of giving you value. Each month has a fun theme and always has a booklet to go over the snacks in that exact box. As you can see, this is Sakura Snacktastic. Really just a fun month, a great one to honestly jump into. We've got some mini pies, which I'm a huge fan of, some potato honey chips. That sounds incredible to me. Sakura mini cookies. There's just tons of stuff for anybody interested in multiple flavors. If Tokyo Treat is the box for fun, then Sakura Co. is the box for comfort. You see, Sakura Co. always comes with more traditional artwork and beautiful booklets and tons of great snacks centered around sitting down and having a nice little tea time with some nice dishes. You're going to have some more savory-centric snacks in this, like some bean paste mochi and other potato-based, salty, sweet, snacky type products. And then at the very bottom of the box, you're always given my favorite part of all of the treat boxes is a permanent piece of item to keep remembering that month from. And this month legitimately is probably my favorite so far. This is adorable. I know that my fiance is going to love this. It's a Neko-centered little dish. It's got little flowers and cats on it. This would be a fantastic gift or a fantastic thing to have around your own home. This is just a perfect little add-on. This is just one part of the box. I would order this just for this little cute dish. Tokyo Treat and Sakura Co. are also a huge fan of teas, as am I, so let's try this month's. All right, let's try this month. It's always more hot than I expect. It's really good. I feel like it's sweeter than it has been in the past. I feel like Tokyo Treat is really good about having really different and varied tea flavors between month to month. But as everybody knows, I like to spice it up a little bit and add a good little Patrouski touch. Perfect. Just how I like it. All right, but that's it from Tokyo Treat and Sakura Co. today. Make sure to go to the link in the description if you want a nice discount off your order and to support me. It's super appreciated. But I'm going to sit here and enjoy some snacks while I start my day. Let's get back to the video. Thank you guys for watching. For the third best Pokemon MMO that I think is at least worth trying is going to be Pokemon Blaze Online. All of these official websites for these Pokemon MMOs will be linked in the description down below, of course, if you want to go check them out. Pokemon Blaze Online's website has always been a little funny to me. It comes off very gamer, if you get what I'm saying. But I think it's a solid game and has a really interesting pacing that we'll touch on in a sec. Now, Pokemon Blaze Online has some really good sound design, intro music, main menu, etc. I think this is actually the most underrated Pokemon MMO on this list because the player base amount and quantity, in my opinion, does not represent the actual quality of the game. I absolutely think that Pokemon Blaze Online slash PBO is probably just the lesser heard about Pokemon MMO on this list. PBO is available on Mac, Android, and Windows. Has a pretty cool and similar-ish art style to PokeOne. It's almost like PokeOne and Pokemon Revolution Online mixed, in my opinion. But the main thing you'll notice with PBO is the insane pacing. If you're someone with not much time on your hands, I really, really recommend PBO because look how fast these battles can be. The pacing, the lack of animations, the load-ins. This is a quick zoomer Pokemon dream. And I absolutely think that this pacing alone makes this game at least worth checking out and worth playing. So many people ask, hey, can you speed up PokeMMO? How do you turn on the emulator 2x speed? And I have to explain to people that that's not a thing in most games. But just the straight up mechanical skill gap that can exist in PBO due to its fast-paced battling system and quick loads is really interesting in my opinion. Now, what Pokemon MMO wouldn't be complete without people shit-talking in global chat while playing PvP? Something that I always thought was cool about PBO is that you can actually go ahead and click /online and it will show you how many players are online. So right now around 58, 57 total players are online. In my opinion, that's criminally underrated. I do think that this Pokemon MMO is really, really good. Now, I do want to quickly say that a long time ago, I think over a year ago now, I was actually sponsored to play this game on stream and on my channel. I wanted to clarify, I am no longer sponsored by this game, and these are my genuine and real thoughts. It seems like nowadays, whenever you have a positive opinion on any game, a lot of people in the comments love to jump to, wow, nice sponsored video. When in reality, to make a sponsored video, you legally have to disclose that. It would be illegal for me not to disclose if I was sponsored by a specific game or thing. So if I am just giving positive feedback in the year 2024, I know it may be jarring to many, but that is my actual feedback. But enough sass directed at the comments. I do think PBO is super, super hyper underrated. Some people actually praise it as the most updated Pokemon MMO, which is kind of interesting to me, since it has up to the Gen 8 combat system, and I believe some later Gen Pokemon as well. I think that this Reddit post made by a really passionate PBO fan is honestly worth checking out, where he calls it the most fresh Pokemon MMO on the market. Now, do I super agree with that? Not entirely, but there are some really cool things to mention here. They do have a new custom region called the Javalo region, which I think is really, really interesting. They do have Pokemon up to Gen 8, which is really impressive. Gen 8 combat system, Dynamax raids, fishing contest, random swarms, crew wars, as I assume is like a guild or a clan, bug competition. They have a lot of interesting endgame content similar to PokeOne. And they also do have a trade house and Pokemon mounts. I do think one of the biggest things holding back this game is just the low player count. And now, according to someone in the global chat, the shiny rate in PBO is not disclosed by the devs. So I think that's something interesting worth noting. It wouldn't surprise me if it's something pretty high, since the encounters can be so fast. You probably need a decently high shiny rate to actually counteract that. But who knows? If you have any extended experience or have put a ton of hours either playing or shiny hunting in PBO, leave your experience in the comments. But that's it for PBO. Let's do some rapid fire rounds on some really solid Pokemon MMOs worth talking about, or maybe even kind of quickly shitting on some other Pokemon MMOs. Now, when I say shitting on, I mean that lightheartedly. I'm just not a huge fan of a lot of Pokemon MMOs, and I think it's really tough. When you have to justify your time on one game over the other, you really do have to compare them, and there is an expected cost. Well, let's quickly talk about the fourth best Pokemon MMO, or the Pokemon MMO that might actually overtake the second best spot. And that is going to be PokeForce. PokeForce has made some insanely incredible decisions upon making their new Pokemon MMO. It is not released yet. You cannot play PokeForce. You can't just go download the game and log in and play it now. You cannot. However, they do playtest bursts and sort of testing and learning new mechanics and figuring out. And they've actually they're doing an event. They're doing a Lunar New Year event. They did a Christmas event where you can actually get a limited vanity that you'll get in the game once the game itself finally releases. They just recently made a forums. PokeForce has done a really good job of communicating with the Pokemon MMO community. There's multiple developers that actually watch my streams covering PokeMMO, and I really think they listen. And I'm really excited to see what gameplay decisions and changes they make with PokeForce once it finally releases in a year's time or so. I have a whole playlist dedicated on my channel to PokeForce that should be linked in the description, covering all the updates and the timeline at which they're trying to make the game at. But if you have any more questions about it, let me know in the comments or hit up their forums. It's tough to say too much about it or get too excited about it since the game literally isn't even out yet. All right, but aside from PokeForce, let's cover probably the next most talked about, or for a lot of people, the second best Pokemon MMO, Pokemon Revolution Online. Now, keep in mind, this is just my opinion, but Pokemon Revolution Online is easily the most overrated and overhyped Pokemon MMO, in my opinion. If you play it and you enjoy it, I think that's incredible, and you should just shut me up or turn me off or whatever, or just ignore me. You don't have to listen to my opinion. This is just my thoughts. I think Pokemon Revolution is super overrated. It was hailed as the PokeMMO killer, PvP, the endgame. I have heard good things about some of the endgame content. A lot of the systems seem really just taken from other games and not really improved upon in any way. There's not even that much on the website. The game does seem to be slowly dying. It was one of the most popular Pokemon MMOs on release, and to have it have so much traction and to see it just whittle down over time, I think is really showing of the quality they've put into it. In my opinion, there's just really not a reason to play Pokemon Revolution Online or Pro. If you want to check it out, I encourage you. You should at least try all of these Pokemon MMOs, and I have tried Pro back in the day. And I think I actually revisited it recently and did a video on my channel covering it and was once again wildly unimpressed. This game has the same issues with lacking the ROM system, so it's not legally protected from my understanding. It only has 4 generations that are able to be played through, which is pretty solid in my opinion. It does say that they have an active community of over 10,000 each day. I would love to see official numbers on this or see official data on this. And that might even be true. I think Pro is actually pretty popular in my opinion, at least in relation to the quality of gameplay. There's no breeding system in this game, so it has the same issues with the 31 speed Starmie situation, where if you're lacking that 31 speed and plus speed nature, you're at a huge disadvantage in PvP. There's a lot of lack of integrity there. There's not enough syncs for the Pokemon, so the economy has been dwindling down, and I think will eventually die out. I know these opinions are super harsh, and they are just my opinions. I'm really not a fan of Pro. But who knows? They could always make a bunch of positive decisions or good decisions that would actually improve the game, and maybe I'll have to revisit it in the future. I think it's always good to come back to things and reevaluate your opinion on them. Another Pokemon MMO we can talk about is Pokemon Planet. Now, I played Pokemon Planet way back in the day. Back in 2014 or so, if I'm not mistaken, probably towards its release, and I always thought of it as being wildly outdated even upon release. I always thought this game was super clunky, visually unimpressive, uninteresting, and just offered nothing new to the Pokemon formula. Maybe this has changed. I actually would really like to revisit Pokemon Planet since I haven't played it in a super long time, but from my understanding and my general I guess impressions is that this game was outdated upon release and just never caught up. Not outdated in terms of content, but outdated in terms of mechanics. You have to have a lot of things in Pokemon MMOs to really make them function and work long term. And there's a lot of good reasons why there's a lot of Pokemon MMOs, and a lot of them end up dying out, unfortunately. Once again, if you enjoy Pokemon Planet, I think that's awesome, and I encourage you to enjoy it. And if you think I'm wrong about something or missing something, I'd really like to do another First Impressions of Pokemon Planet sometime this year and get another relook at it, because maybe I'm wrong. All right, rapid fire time. I've played things like Pokemon Crater, Pokemon World Online. That's one of the old OGs that I played back in the day when it was one of the only options. Once again, outdated and never caught up in my opinion. Someone recommended me to Pokemon Vortex, and that was a nightmare, just like a browser-based, text-based thing. There's a lot of browser-based, text-based Pokemon MMOs that exist from like the early 2000s, if you want to check those out. Those aren't really my thing. They never really were, unfortunately. On a quick side note, I did play Pokemon Tower Defense. Pokemon Tower Defense 1 through 3, absolute chef's kiss, incredible games. There is also Pokemon MMO 3D, which apparently has had their website severely gutted since the last time I checked. Pokemon MMO 3D looks like that dream Pokemon game that we all wanted growing up, sort of a first-person, more realistic Pokemon experience. And the world itself, in the core of it, is beautiful, but that's pretty much all it is. This game released a long time ago, and by a long time ago, I'm pretty sure it released around 2015, if not earlier. And once again, the guts and the core of the game are fantastic, but they never really added or did anything with it. I truly don't know what the developers are doing, because I think they struck gold and everybody was super excited and hyped, and then they just did nothing. When I say did nothing, I mean that there is like 1 or 2 towns that you can visit within this game. I am not joking. I did a full first impressions of it on my YouTube. This game was just easily one of the biggest letdowns of any Pokemon MMO or any Pokemon game that I've ever played. Rest in peace, Pokemon MMO 3D. But I believe that's everything I wanted to talk about. Once again, I am just a humble Pokemon MMO enjoyer, and these were just my thoughts and opinions. But I recommend, following my advice to some extent and checking out whatever games and just finding whatever Pokemon MMO works for you. If you liked this video and it was helpful to you, make sure to like it. If you disagreed or thought that I was stupid and smelly, feel free to dislike it. Subscribe to the channel for daily PokeMMO content generally. Discord's links down below. Twitch's links down below. I actually stream 4 times a week, Monday through Thursday at 12 p.m. ET generally. And if you want to go above and beyond and support the channel, YouTube memberships, Twitch Primes, Twitch subs, and PayPal/Venmo donations allow me to make content like this, covering Pokemon MMOs and just discovering what I like and what other people like and trying to get the information out there. Because I think Pokemon MMOs are just a wildly underrated genre, and I think it works for a lot of us Pokemon fans. Thank you so much for watching, and have a fantastic day. Thank you so much for watching until the very end of the video, and I hope it was a positive asset to your day. The same way everybody listed here is a positive asset to my day, going above and beyond and allowing me to make content every single day. Thanks so much for watching, and have a good one.